So I was just about to put my shoes on and go and do the big food shop of the week at Asda, and then I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, better sort something out with this before I step outside and maybe frighten small children. We are going to be trying out lots of new things today. Thought I would kill two birds with one stone and film it for all of you. So we've got things from Anastasia Beverly Hills, Charlotte Tilbury, Laura Mercier, Huda Beauty, Fenty Beauty, and Hourglass, to name but a few. Actually, I think I've named them all, so we're going to get straight on with it. If you're new here, hi. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. Let's get on. So I like to start with my brows usually, so that's exactly where I'm going to begin. I do have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Freeze Gel. This is a new product. I did like the original Brow Freeze in the little pot, but it didn't last very long until it went very white, very hard, and completely unusable. And when you're not using the same product day in, day out because you test out other products, that just won't cut it for me. I don't think it lasted longer than 3 months, so, you know, it's a little poor. It reacted with the air and it was just unusable. So I'm hoping we get better success with this, but just as good a hold. It does look like a very gluey, gloopy formula. I'm hoping it transfers to the brow hairs in a nice way. I do like the applicator. You have a spoolie-like applicator that's very flat, so you've got some longer bristles on one side and then shorter, very fine bristles on the other to hopefully style, push the brows back to the skin if you want more of a laminated look. So I'm going to use the longer brow hairs first and go get this into my brows. Actually, I'm going to use the flat side just to get the product in there. That's a really good way of getting the product in the brows. Then comb it through with the long side. That makes the brows look a little fluffier. Then I'm going to use the short side to really style them where I want them and push them back to the skin. So I have had to faff around a little bit more, work this a little bit more to get the amount of hold that the original Brow Freeze gave me immediately. Because the original Brow Freeze was a little bit thicker, it was heavier, it really stuck my brows where I wanted them straight away. Whereas this one, because it's looser and lighter, just takes a little bit of time to start drying down before it gives you that hold. I don't mind that at all though, and now it's dried down, it's just stuck them exactly where I want them. I have had to push them back to the skin to give them even more hold, but I don't mind that at all, and it hasn't left any residue around my brows. I will say this does smell of glue. It's like a PVA kids glue sort of scent. So I put more product in this brow straight away and already I'm getting a better hold. I've only used the thicker side of the applicator here. I've not pushed this back to my skin. They look fluffy, they look larger. I am going to push it back to my skin just to make them even, but you could quite easily just leave them like this. So if you don't like that laminated look, I think you'd be all right with this product. I love the fact that the applicator is shaped this way. It's pretty genius. Because it has a flat side, you don't have to get your fingers in to push the brow hairs back to the skin. You can just use the side of the applicator. I just think that's really, really clever. At the minute, I think this is great. Doesn't seem to have left any shiny residue around my brows. They don't feel crispy or crunchy at the moment. No stickiness left on my brows whatsoever. Quite impressive. So I've just filled in my brows using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Powder Duo in the shade Taupe. This went on like a dream. No dragging, no waxiness, no clinging to certain areas, no having to clean off my brush with a tissue constantly like I usually do when I use my brow soap, which I love, by the way. It's got extra strong hold, it's really easy to apply, but you do get that application issue of the waxiness and having to clean off the brush, and I didn't get any of that after using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Freeze Gel. I'm going to prep my eyelids with the lid lifting treatment from City Beauty. This is such a great product, and if you do suffer with any crepiness on your eyelids, any fine lines on your eyelids that you feel like your eyeshadow sits in, or you find it difficult to apply any eyeliner because it goes a little crinkly throughout the day, this is the product that will hopefully sort out all those issues. It definitely does for me, and I've tried this on my mum and it works for her as well. It is magic. The one thing that doesn't do though is cover over any discoloration, so I'm just going to do that now with my P. Louise base in the shade 2. Powder that in place just to set that down. Then I'm going to reach for my brand new Charlotte Tilbury limited edition Queen of Look luxury palette. How beautiful is this colour story? There's a little bit of a two-tone champagne-y pink shade in there. I'm not usually a fan of pinks on my eyes. I know they look absolutely stunning on some people. Generally, they don't look nice on mine. However, spoiler alert, I have already tried this. I got this around about 4 days ago. It's already been on my lids 3 times. So let's get some on. I do like to just do my crease shade with the Super Nudes Easy Eye palette from Charlotte Tilbury, just because it's a slightly lighter shade, and I prefer it to the shade that's in here. I am going to use the shade that's in here, but just because I am so fair-skinned, I do like to use this shade, which is slightly softer than the shade that's in the Queen of Look palette. So I'm just going to lay that down, and that's literally all I'm going to do. Then I'm going to pop this gold shimmer shade all over the lid. I really love the colour of this, and I just think the formulation of this shadow is so classy. It's soft, it's subtle, it's not chunky particles of glitter. This is just a subtle wash of shimmer, and I just think it is beautiful. If you want it to be even more subtle, you can apply this with a brush rather than with your fingertips, but yeah, I just think it is lovely. Then I'm going to dip in to this really rich medium toned brown shade and just pop that on the outer corner. This is so flattering for my brown eyes. It's such a lovely shade. Look at that. So lovely. Then take a fluffy brush and just buff that very gently into the gold shimmer, just to blend those two shades together. Not taking that shade too far up. Haven't taken any above the crease whatsoever. I don't want anything to look too heavy today. I am, of course, only going to Asda. Going into this pinky gold two-tone shimmer, and I'm going to place that in the center and then just slightly above the crease there. Just love this. Look at that. It's just, this is so exciting. It really is. It's lovely. Like I said, I don't usually like a pinky tone, but because this isn't pink all the time, it just glimmers pink when it catches the light. I think I can get away with this. It's very, very pretty. And finally, I am going to come back to this palette when I've done my concealer and everything, but I'm just going to take a little bit of that lighter shade, the lightest shade in the palette, and just go on that inner corner just to brighten everything up. I'm going to do this again a little bit later on and go a bit further down and also underneath the lash line, but for now, that is where we're going to leave it. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I usually go in with eyeshadow as a liner. I've not done that today for good reason, because I absolutely love the Laura Mercier Caviar sticks. I think they are superb as a one and done eyeshadow, but they've brought out some Caviar eyeliners and I want to try them out today. I am desperate to get these on my lids. I've picked up a couple of shades. So I have the shade Espresso Brown, and I also have the shade Dark Plum. Gotta say, I'm a little bit disappointed with the shade Dark Plum. I thought it would be plummier. It just looks black to me. So I think I'm gonna use Espresso, and I might use a little bit of the Dark Plum on the outer edge, but for now, pick up Espresso, which is what is calling to me at the moment, and just run that really quite lightly across that lash line. Not trying to be neat here, I'm just tapping it on as we go, and then I'm going to take a brush and softly buff that out to be a little bit smokier. There's a lot of pigment payoff in these, a lot of pigment payoff. So you don't need to touch the lid really aggressively, so you don't need to tug on the lid, you don't need to drag the eyelids. If your eyelids are your problem area, that will be music to your ears. This is so easy to buff out and soften. I'm not quite sure why I look surprised or sound surprised, because it is a smaller version of a caviar stick in pencil form. It's so lovely. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. I love that. Let's try the Dark Plum. Go on, let's go for it. Just on that outer corner, just to add a little bit more depth, and then buff that out. Still disappointed that it's not more purpley plummy, but the formula of these is stunning. Look at what a difference it makes to the overall look. I mean, it just looks more polished, more finished, a little bit smokier, a little bit more sultry, and yet still very wearable. Some of the shades that are available of the caviar eyeliners do have a little bit of sparkle in there, just like the original caviar sticks. So I've picked a couple of shades that don't have that sparkle because I prefer to have sparkle in the form of eyeshadow. If I'm going to do sparkle, that tends to be where I go. And I don't like to have sparkly eyeliners in my waterline, so I want these to be more of a universal product and me to be able to use them in my waterline as well as on my lash line. Don't like to have sparkle anywhere near my eyes because I don't want the grittiness when I'm wearing my contact lenses. Once these have set down, they set and they do not budge. And the reason I know this is because it's been around about 5 minutes since I applied the swatches on the back of my hand, and just nothing is happening to these. No smudging, no nothing, just no movement at all. So I know this is going to stay true all day. So I've done my mascara and my foundation. I don't have anything new to share with you in those departments, so I thought I'd better do those off camera to make this video a little shorter. I do need to cover over my under eye circles though, and I'm not quite sure if concealer will do the trick on its own. Usually my concealer needs a bit of a helping hand from a colour corrector, and my standout, hands down favourite colour corrector is the Huda Beauty colour corrector. I think it is absolutely phenomenal, and they brought out a brand new shade. My usual shade that I go to is Pink Pomelo, but they've also brought out their iconic Cherry Blossom shade in a colour corrector as well. So I'm going to try both of these, one on one side, one on the other, to see which one I prefer, and hopefully give you an idea of the difference in shades so that you can decide whether you need this in your life as well. Exactly the same formula, so I knew exactly what I was going to get. I really love this formula. It's smooth, it's not too fluid, and it's not too thick. It blends really beautifully. I just like to cover over the areas of darkness. I don't like to go over any other area whatsoever. That's really done the job very, very well. This is Cherry Blossom on this side of my face, so the right side of my screen as you're seeing it. Let's have a look at Pink Pomelo, which is my usual go-to. I don't know which one I prefer at this point. I'm going to push it into my skin using my finger. And then once it's dried down, we can really have a look and see which one I prefer. I didn't think I was going to like Cherry Blossom. Cherry Blossom to me looked a little bit cooler than Pink Pomelo, which is a slightly warmer undertone. And although I have a neutral undertone, it's verging more dominant warm rather than cool. I thought Pink Pomelo would cover over my under eye circles a lot better than a Cherry Blossom, and actually Cherry Blossom looks way more natural, as if I don't need as much concealer to cover over the pigment that these give using Cherry Blossom. Let's cover it over with some concealer and see whether I feel the same. I have a brand new concealer to share with you, the Fenty Beauty We're Even Hydrating Longwear Concealer. I've picked this up in a couple of shades. I haven't even opened these yet, so I have no idea if these are going to be my shades. So I've got the shade 120N and 140N, which I believe are the fairest neutral shades that they have. So this has actually shocked me again. So on the left of the back of my hand, we've got 140N. And on the right of the back of my hand, we have 120N. Now, 120N seems a little deeper to me than 140N. And I think it's probably going to be my shade. So I'm actually going to use 120N. Rather than 140N. It seems slightly warmer, and the 140N seems definitely more of a pinkier undertone to it. They're definitely both neutral. They're not screaming orange or pink, but 140N is definitely pinkier than 120N. So let's pick up 120N. Put a little bit more on the back of my hand. I definitely wouldn't want to go any lighter than this. This may be a little bit too brightening underneath my eyes. I don't really like to go massively bright underneath my eyes. I like to go for something more the same tone as my skin, but we will see. Firstly, this is a really nice loose formula that is sitting underneath the eyes really nicely. It's sinking into the skin. It's very lightweight. It's very smooth. It feels quite hydrating. You get that luminescence a little bit, so it's definitely not matte, but I'm not sure if I've got the right shade here. I think this is probably too fair, which is a real shame because I've already bought two. I did have 150N in the hydrating foundation way back when, so maybe I'll pick up 150 because I like the overall coverage of this and how it's sitting underneath my eyes. I mean, it's just melted into nothingness. It hasn't clung to any of my dry patches. Definitely hasn't sat in any fine lines or wrinkles yet. It's quite reflective, which is probably why it looks lighter underneath all these lights than it does in my mirror. But I don't think this is an airbrushing formula. You can see a lot of my fine lines and wrinkles underneath my eyes in the mirror in front of me, which often, if I use something that is slightly more matte, that airbrushes those away and they're not as evident. So just going to get a little bit more product and build up the product over those areas of darkness. And just leave it to sit there for a minute before I blend it out. It's what I would usually do with my current favourite, so let's leave that there, come back to it in a second. Okay, I'm gonna go in with my finger and try and push that into the skin, blend it into my foundation. This is so loose in consistency. It's a lovely formula. I would say this gives medium coverage. I'm not quite sure it's massively buildable up to full coverage. But playing around with it, I really like it. It's a little bit too brightening for me. I have picked the wrong shade. That is not the concealer's fault. That is totally mine. But I like it enough to invest in the deeper shade. I mean, it doesn't look bad once I've got my blush on and everything is complete. It will look completely fine. I can make this shade work for me, but I do think I'll prefer it in 150N. So I am going to place that order as soon as I finish filming. I will be doing a full roundup video of all the concealer new releases because there have been so many released very recently. The new one from Laura Mercier, there is a new one at Beauty Pie, there's obviously this one, there's a couple of others that are about to be released, so watch this space if you're wanting to know how long this lasts for, how it wears throughout the day, whether it starts to settle into fine lines and wrinkles. All that information will be in that video. So I've just powdered my under eyes in place using my Hourglass translucent powder. I didn't want to use my Pat McGrath powder because I thought that would be a little bit too brightening on top of a concealer that was already brightening my eyes to begin with. So I've used something that was more my natural skin tone with my Hourglass powder, and this coped with powder very, very well and has blurred things off a little bit. Obviously that's the powder, not the concealer, but I'm impressed how this very wet, fluid, serum-like formula has taken powder. And there's no stickiness, no tackiness, sank into the skin really beautifully. So I've just applied a little bit of the Rare Beauty liquid blush in the shade Virtue just to lift this look a little bit. That obviously isn't new, so I'll just pop that to the side and we're gonna move on to lips. Actually, before we move on to lip liner, I'm just going to apply a little bit more of the brightening shade in the palette and just go into that inner corner just to open up the eye even more. Just really love that pop of brightness. Then I'm going to use this gold shimmer shade, just go slightly underneath the lash line. I've started to put a shimmer underneath the lash line quite a bit recently. I just think it's a bit of an eye-opener. It just makes you look quite special without people noticing that you've actually got it on underneath there. It's just something a little bit different. So I've been enjoying doing that recently. It doesn't have to be really vibrant, it's just very subtle, and yeah, I just really like the effect that it does. So I'm just popping a little bit right in the center, and then taking a bit of that really lovely medium toned brown shade and just popping that on that outer corner to just make everything a little bit more polished, a little bit more cohesive. Oh, it's so pretty, really pretty. Back to lips, I'm going to be using the lip liner from Hourglass. This is the Shape and Sculpt lip liner. I think this is new. It's either new or it's got new shades added to it. I've got the shade Expose 1. Nevertheless, I have never tried this before up until very recently. It's a really nice, what is it? A warm beige shade. It's creamy, it's soft, it applies very well, no waxiness, it doesn't cling to certain areas and then not cling to others. And it's a really long-lasting formula as well. I've worn this on numerous days and it's lasted throughout. It's not as long-lasting as some of my lip liners, but the formula is so creamy and soft and smooth that I can actually put up with that. So I would say you definitely get 8 hours wear out of this. If you are going to be eating or drinking, you may need to reapply. I personally don't reapply. This is so close to the shade of my natural lip colour. It is perfection for me because if I want a very natural look, I could just outline the lips to make them look more polished and make them crisper and more defined and not apply any other product whatsoever. It looks that natural. I really love this. It's a little bit more expensive than I usually pay for a lip liner, but I think I'd repurchase. I have picked up 2 of the brand new Anastasia Beverly Hills Lip Velvets. These look like they're going to be right up my street. The shades of these I just love. So I have the shade Crush and Peachy Nude. So my initial thoughts are that the swatches feel incredibly similar in consistency as my Ride or Die Givenchy Cream Velvet lipsticks, which I just absolutely adore. These go on really silky smooth. They really soften my lips. They feel like a creamy lipstick, but they're a liquid lipstick. And yeah, very hydrating, very nourishing. I just love everything about them. So am I setting myself up for disappointment here? These feel very similar in consistency, so let's see. I'm going to go in with Peachy Nude first, and then if I think that's a little bit too fair, I can go in with Crush over the top. These also feel quite similar to the Charlotte Tilbury Lip Blurs, which when I first applied them, I really liked how they felt on my lips. I mean, it didn't end well with those lipsticks, but time will tell with this one whether we get that gunky line that runs between the outer lip and the inner lip. I really don't like that, but I haven't prepped my lips very well today. So I'm gonna give it 5-10 minutes. I'm gonna go off camera, do my hair, and come back and see how this is going. I'm back, and let's not get ahead of ourselves because I have only been wearing this for 5 minutes, but I do really like it. I did think at one point that it was separating for the border of the inner lip and the outer lip, but actually it's just my lips that are in bad nick at the moment. I haven't been looking after them. They are quite dry, they are quite flaky. They're as dry as the skin on my chin is at the moment, which I just cannot get enough moisture into. But yeah, I really like the feel of this. It feels really creamy. It doesn't feel dry at the moment. It's not as creamy a feel as the Givenchy, I'm not gonna lie, but this is a nice alternative. I'm gonna see if Crush will layer nicely over the top or whether it starts to look a little crusty. I do like the applicator of these. In fact, I prefer the applicator of the ABH Lip Velvet to the Givenchy Cream Velvet. The Givenchy Cream Velvet is like an hourglass applicator, and yeah, I just don't find it as easy to use as this one, which is incredibly precise. I love this shade as well. Creamy, smooth, soft. It doesn't look as hydrating as I was hoping, but that may change over time. Maybe the ingredients in here will start to penetrate the lips. Maybe it will be slightly more hydrating and nourishing as the day goes on. Watch this space. So that's it for this video. I really hope you found it helpful. If you have, please show it some love by clicking on the like button. Come and join the family. Click on that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos like these. I have popped another couple of videos over here that I think you may enjoy. Have a great rest of your day and hope to see you all in the next one. Bye everyone.